Welcome to Women Igniting Change, the place to be for women leaders and decision makers who are passionate about changing the world and determined to act. I'm your host, Robin Jorgensen, former corporate executive, global speaker, and founder and CEO of Women Igniting Change. Let's dive in. Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the Women Igniting Change podcast. Today, I have the privilege of introducing you to Naila Kiani. Naila is an internationally renowned mountaineer and the first Pakistani woman climber to summit 10 peaks above 8,000 meters. She is also the only Pakistani to ascend 7 peaks above 8,000 meters in 6 months. And she was also the first international mountaineer to summit Everest in 2023. Naila, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so when you began your journey into mountaineering, it was just a couple of years ago, and you had no experience and no connections, just a passion around the sport. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think for a lot of women, they have a desire that they don't think is possible and they stop themselves from going for it. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I started mountaineering, as in I climbed my very first peak in July 2021, so 2.5 years ago now.
Amazing.
And I did my very first trek 5 years ago, but I didn't do anything between that time. So 5 years ago and then just above 2 years, because I was pregnant with 2 kids.
Right.
I was passionate about mountains in a sense that I love being in the mountains and I wanted to see the big mountains. But even when I did my first trek, I thought people who climb are actually crazy, because why would you risk your life just to be on top of the mountain? So I actually discussed this with my husband just before my K2 trek. I said, why do these people do this? And I didn't understand that. And when I did my K2 base camp trek, I spoke to climbers there and they really inspired me. But anyway, I still thought I'd never ever come back to this area again, because I was planning to have a family. And then things happened and I planned my first peak and I planned the 7,000 meter, which got cancelled due to COVID. Then I thought, why not experience being because I was an athlete already, I was a boxer. So I thought, why not try climbing a really high peak, one of the 8,000er, because in Pakistan we have 5. And my main purpose was really just to experience what I'll go through climbing one of the highest peak. And I had I didn't think I'll my friends were telling me, why are you climbing it? What if you don't reach the top? It's not an achievement. Why don't you climb a 7,000 meter peak, reach the top, raise the country's flag? That will be an achievement. And I disagreed, because for me, achievement was actually experiencing the journey, being with the elite mountaineers, being with the professional mountaineers. And I thought, even if I reach 7,000, that's a big deal for me. And a lot of people actually discourage me, and I don't blame them, because it's you don't know what other person's physical, mental capability. So if somebody tells me without any experience that they want to climb it, I will be I'll tell them to be very careful, cautious, because it's not easy. But I wanted to try it, and my goal was just to experience it. And I really I didn't take any of the negativity, or even I respected people who gave me, advice, but I was very firm that this is something I want to try. And whilst I was trying it, I ended up reaching the top. So here I am today.
So climbing some of the world's highest peaks, first of all, it's an extraordinary achievement, and it also demands a lot of physical and mental strength. So what are some of the personal qualities and values that you rely on when you're up there?
So as you said, physical strength, physical fitness, strength is very important. But I believe that you need to be more strong mentally to be able to reach the top, because a lot of people who are physically very fit. So if I go to gym, there are a lot of people who are physically stronger than me, but they may not be able to climb the peak. So I would say I'm average fit. I obviously prepare myself physically before each climb, but if you compare the fitness level, I'm not super fit. I train myself endurance, strength, cardio, but it's the mental strength that takes me to the top. So I think that's very, very important, because some people don't really think like that. they prepare themselves physically a lot, and then they forget about the mental aspect. And I think also emotional strength too, because you have to be in the mountains. So we actually, women from South Asia or Muslim countries, we are, I think I would say we're not emotionally as strong as maybe some. I don't know if I'm making that correct assumption, but we are very protected in our families, and we, not all of us are used to leaving families and being alone somewhere away from family in a complete strange environment. So it's harder. It's harder because we're not used to. I mean, I'm obviously getting used to it now, and I'm a lot stronger emotionally than I was before. But I think all of that helps.
How do you train for that mental toughness? What do you do to prepare for that?
Oh, so I think this is, I get this asked this question, and I really maybe need to think, because sometimes it's hard to decode what you go through,
Right.
what you do to get somewhere. But one thing I know for sure is I am already, or even when I started this, I was already mentally, I would say, super strong, because I had a really tough life, really, really, really tough life growing up. I had a very difficult childhood and a very, very difficult university life. My early adult years were quite tough, so they naturally, I went through that, and I think I'm a strong person because of my challenging life. But I think I need to think really hard. That maybe, I'm sure there's some tips and tricks to that you people can do to train themselves to be strong mentally.
Yeah, well, I mean, having that lived experience, I mean, that becomes part of your DNA. So you just approach the world from that position of mental toughness based on your lived experience, it sounds like.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. As you're thinking of any of your climbs, is there one moment or some awe inspiring experience from one of your expeditions that really stands out over any other?
I think it's a very maybe tiny moment, but it had a massive impact on me. I would say, like, in terms of how beautiful it was, I never even thought that I'd ever see something like that. So I think so on it happened on K2 and another mountain I can't remember, but it was above 8,000 meters. So when we were climbing during the night, because we were in the summit push, because we do the summit push mostly during the night. And at one point, I stopped and I turned around and I saw something really big and shiny. And I thought, what's this really big, shiny thing, like below my eye level? And then climbed a little bit up, and then actually realized it was moon. And moon was actually below my eye level. Absolutely, like, I never heard anybody say that. I mean, I'm sure there's some science or behind it, or but anyway, of course, it moon went up. So I never forgot that moment, because yeah, how can I be? I mean, I'm not in a plane, or I'm not in a spaceship. I'm climbing a mountain actually higher than moon.
That sounds incredible. That's amazing. So you have broken multiple records as a Pakistani female mountaineer. What drives your determination to keep pushing those boundaries and achieving new heights?
So I wasn't last year, right now, I mean, in January 2023, honestly, I had no plans to climb seven peaks. I had sponsored for two 8,000ers, and I kept making last minute plans, and I kept getting sponsors, which is one of our biggest issue, especially in Pakistan, to get financial help. So I think so. The two or three objective, I think one is really one, I love climbing, or I love mountains, being in the mountains. But definitely it's much harder to climb many mountains in a short time. It's very hard physically and mentally. So another reason I did this, because I wanted to inspire my daughters. I had a very restrictive life. I lived in a very conservative, I'm from a very conservative family, or I was. And then I want my daughters to grow up with the mindset that they can do anything that they want to do, and I want to be their model. And third was, I started getting, when I first started mountaineering climbing, it was just for me and my daughters. It was a personal a reason why I was climbing. But I started getting messages from a lot of female, mostly from Pakistan, but also from outside of Pakistan, and of course a lot of men too. And they thought that it was incredible that a married woman with two children, very young children too, and a full-time working professional, is climbing high peaks. And they were very inspired because I was not from the mountain. So we have another mountaineer who climbed Everest 10 years ago, Samina, but she's from the mountain. She was born at 3,000 meters. All her family is from they climbers. So they never thought a girl from outside of mountains will climb high peaks. So they started saying that my story inspires them. So I thought, okay, if it's something that, if I can set an example that you can do anything that you want to, as long as you make your mind up and don't let the limitations society imposes on us, or don't even let the limitation that we impose on ourselves stop us from going after our dreams. So that's why I think, so breaking records initially was not a goal. Of course, if once I climbed the peak and I had a record under my name, it was a great feeling. But this is not what I initially started doing. But yeah, I think these records, again, I'm elaborating a bit more. Sorry if I'm taking longer.
No, not at all. You're fine.
But I think we should do things for passion more than records. But also, if records help, if I was just doing it for myself, and if I didn't have a record under my name and I didn't make the headlines, then maybe my news wouldn't get to enough women in Pakistan, or outside of Pakistan, in this region. I live in Dubai. So that actually helped, because, if somebody hears news that Naila's broken this record or she's made this record, it does help to get to have for the news to go to the wider audience.
Yeah. So do you consider yourself an advocate for gender equality almost by accident?
I think by accident, because I just I didn't even think about, I'm doing it for a cause, or I'm doing it for gender equality. I started doing it because this was something I wanted to do simply, and I didn't think I'm doing it because to prove that I can do it as a woman. That's not how I started. It was simply that I wanted to do something, and I didn't think who does it, who's good at it, who's not good at it. And I think it's actually indirectly. It started indirectly, but yes, maybe now I do a bit more consciously.
So traditionally, mountaineering is typically a male-dominated field. Can you share any experiences or challenge that you faced as a woman in the industry, and how have you overcome them?
I think, to be honest, my journey as a mountaineer was very hard too. When I started it, I thought I'm doing it for myself. I went through depression most of my life. I thought being outdoors obviously helped me. So I thought if I start climbing mountains, it'll obviously help me with my own mental health too. But it was
Yeah.
quite hard because I mean, I can give a couple examples, because people,
Sure.
when they heard I was climbing mountains, they said, okay, she was lucky she climbed first peak because it was in technical, she will not be able to climb K2. I climbed K2. Then on Annapurna, things happened, there were accident, I was evacuated with other climbers. They said, oh, she got tired and that's why she came down, she was evacuated like that. So, and then they said, how can a woman climb so many mountains so quick? So basically, again, not that I was doing it to be quick, but I managed to climb 10 peaks much quicker than anyone else, even other men, because I guess I was lucky to get sponsorship. So of course that helped with the speed. But they said it's not possible for a woman to do it. There's an agency behind her, or six men carried her to the top. So I heard a lot of that. And of course it's harder for women. There are lots of other, like physically, it's hard physically in a sense that we go through monthly cycles, and it's hard physically, emotionally. So it's much tougher for us. I think these all those the challenges that we faced, they bothered me. Everything that the views, the trolls I faced really bothered me. But I think, I guess I didn't want to give up. Simply, the answer would be that I just didn't want to give up. I was really upset at times, and I spoke to Marina about it a few times too. And eventually, I decided that why should I give up just because of someone's perspective or someone's perception? So I continued, and I think that mindset, the mindset, I guess, overcoming negativity, being positive, that really helped me to continue and climb all the peaks that I did in the last year.
Yeah, so let's switch over to the positive side of this. How do you think your accomplishments have contributed to changing perceptions of women in mountaineering?
100%. I mean, like I said, up until, so even after climbing 3 peaks, I mean, after climbing 1 peak, they said she's lucky. After climbing 3 peaks, it wasn't a big deal. She gets carried by the male porters or something. Actually, that was the case. I guess out of 10, I climbed 11, 11th one, I couldn't reach the top. So I think after 6, 7 mountain, I still heard these things. And they eventually stopped very recently. I mean, I haven't heard anything recently. So yeah. So as a women people didn't think that women are capable of climbing high mountains. But in the last 2 years, since I climbed my first peak 2.5 years ago, since then I saw a huge number of women try. At least, I mean, I know who. I get to see the women trekkers or women climbers. There are few more climbers who've climbed 8,000-meter peaks in Pakistan and in Nepal from Pakistan. Then there are a lot more trekkers than we had when before my climbing started. So I see that impact directly when I'm in the mountains. I see a lot more women, and 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 I get messages from women too. And I know a lot of women who started it. They tell me that they started trekking or being in the mountains because they were inspired by my story. And actually, a lot of women who are married and they have kids. I mean, before, adventure was really not associated with married. Not just actually women, even men. They stop a lot of time. They stop doing adventurous activity after having kids because you have to be responsible for your family, and you have to sacrifice for your family. I mean, I love my children, but I think since after seeing my journey, a lot of women, especially, they tell me that they started to do what they always, whatever they were passionate about. So yeah, so I definitely know from what I see in the mountains, and from what women tell me, that there's been a big impact since my mountaineering started.
That's incredible. So, as you think of any of the 10 that you've climbed, what are some of the lessons that the mountains have taught you?
Tough question. I think last one was traumatic. Last mountain was quite a tough one for all of us, whoever was on Shisha Pangma mountain. So, I mean, I started climbing. I had great experience. So I climb with a guide always because th- th- I have two. So I don't know. I guess the difference between different type of climbing without oxygen, climbing without Sherpa or guide. I usually climb with a guide because it's safer for me. I feel safer because of my two girls. So one is nearly 5 and one is 3. So it's already very risky with oxygen and with a guide, and I wouldn't take more risk than I'm already taking. And yeah, so when we were on Shisha Pangma, I think all of us were thinking, because before Shisha Pangma, I had experiences which were very challenging, but I think everybody in my team and outside of my team, other climbers, were super confident. I think not arrogant. I wouldn't. I am not an arrogant person. I can never be. And I hope I never get to be. I mean, never get arrogant in my life ever in future. But we were very overconfident, was probably the right word. That nothing happened on the last 10 mountains. it wasn't even in this thought never even crossed my mind that maybe something can go wrong on this mountain, and everyone else said the same thing after. So but mountain was not ready. We were all climbing, and then there were two avalanches which hit six people, and four people died. Four of our friends died on the mountain. So
I'm so
nature is
sorry.
always bigger than us. Our egos are not, we should, that really taught us a lesson that we never be arrogant, never have an ego, because you know like you're tiny amongst those gigantic mountains. So I think
Right.
that, I mean, there are lots of other lessons I learned. That was probably the biggest one. I think second one, actually, that's quite important because that I can apply in the daily life. I used to be, I mean, I like to think I'm a nice person, but even then, I could be judgmental. I mean, not in a negative way. I mean, I'd never go and tell somebody, oh, you shouldn't do this or that. But still, deep down, I used to judge people. But being in the mountains, I mean, I was very close to death. I saw people dying. I think that helped me to be a very non-judgmental person. I don't judge anyone anymore, as long as you're not hurting a human
Right.
being. You're not hurting somebody physically or emotionally. You can be anything you want. You can do whatever you want. I don't judge people anymore, and that's for me, that's huge, because if I wasn't in the mountains, I don't know how I could be like that. I how could learn to be non-judgmental.
Yeah. So, being in some of the world's most remote and breathtaking places, how has your connection to nature influenced your commitment to conservation, if any?
Just so I understand that question, are you saying like from a point of view of less pollution, less garbage? Is that, if I understand the question correct?
Yes. Yeah. So, just being in these remote areas, standing on top of lots. So, um, you get a view and a perspective of the environment that most do not. Has that
Yes.
changed your perception of conservation in any way?
Yes, so I think so. We are from Pakistan, and to be very honest, we are not that much into making sure that every obviously our houses are very clean, but everything outside the house is not clean. So it's not, unfortunately, part of our culture to go out and not litter. So I mean, anybody, even if they're super educated and they're from a very wealthy family, sometimes you'd see, leaving rubbish everywhere, not caring about the environment. So that is, let's be honest, in our DNA so far. It's part of our culture. I was a bit different because I lived outside of Pakistan. So we live in Dubai, and we'll get fined if the police saw me littering, they'll straight away catch me. So that actually helped me to change my habits. If maybe they weren't finding, I'd probably continue with my Pakistani habits. So what I mean to say is, when I was in the mountain, I saw how, I'll give you K2 base camp example. So just in 2022, when I was climbing K2, there's a big glacier, and we used to go near the glacier, not cross it, because I mean, we used to just stay outside and take pictures with the glacier. In 2023, last year, most of that glacier looked, it was melted. We could see the rock. So we used to go every day. We'd climb it. I mean, it wasn't hard to climb, even without the equipment. We'd climb it, sit there, and there was a tower for internet not far away. So we used to sit there and use internet all the time. We could not do that 2 years ago. So we saw the impact of global warming on the glaciers right away, which, living in cities, it's not, you don't really see what's happening to the nature, what is the impact of global warming on the mountains. And then I know when we used to go to seminars, we used to hear that after 10 years they saw a glacier receding. But I saw that, in all of us saw that difference uh, at K2 base camp in 1 year. And then we had a lot of issues with floods in Pakistan. So last year and the year before, we had massive, huge destruction because of floods, and of course that's caused by global warming. But yeah, as mountaineers, what I mean to say is we see firsthand impact of what's happening in the mountains and the effects of that ice melting or weather changes and floods happening. So we do talk about in Pakistan all the time, and but I think this, unfortunately, there's very little change, and it's very sad to see that people in general public, they're not doing enough to change this right now.
So you have a goal of climbing all 14 of the world's 8,000s. Tell me a little bit more about that goal.
So again, last year, this time in January 2023, I had no plan to climb all 14. Somehow I got a sponsor for Everest and Lhotse, and then one of the expedition leader asked me to join Annapurna expedition because it's a strong team. I said yes, somehow found the sponsor, used my savings. And then after Everest and Lhotse, I just made plans last minute. I kept getting sponsored for all the peaks. So it wasn't pre-planned. It just kept happening. So I've climbed 10. So I'm thinking might as well climb the last 4 to complete the 14 peaks. So it was no plan, but I think it'll be, now I'm so close to completing 14. So why not? And then if I can get to be the first Pakistani female, if that happens. I mean, if it doesn't happen for whatever reason, and of course, if let's say another female comes up and she wants to climb all 14, I'll be honestly, genuinely very, very, very happy, because there are not many female in Pakistan who do sports in general. Not like very, very, very tiny percentage. So let's see. Let's see. I have 4. Let's see what happens, whether I get financial support or not. And my husband's very pushing me to have another baby. So, oh God, that's another thing I need to think about. So yeah, you never know whether it'll happen before or after.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So where can our listeners learn more about you?
I think I need to work on my Instagram. I have a lot of pictures and videos there, but I think that's probably the best place to see my mountaineering journey. I think, yeah, I guess that would be the main place.
Beautiful. Naila, thank you so much. This was incredible. For our listeners, we will have Naila's lengthy bio and links to all of her social media channels, and we will see you back here next time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Women Igniting Change. I know creating change matters to you. If you enjoy what we talk about on the show, please take one action today and share it with someone who could benefit from listening. Until next time, keep standing up and speaking out for what matters.